So, when driving, I feel like, especially when coasting and things like that, when you're like keeping the same speed and probably, I want to say like under 45, it kind of sounds like marbles coming from somewhere in the front or the mid, somewhere around there when you're driving. It just sounds like something's constantly like, not exactly rattling, but it's got just a constant noise, like a just an I can't really describe it, but I guess marbles is the closest I can come to it. Just there's a constant, I don't know, jangling. So everything in this front end has been replaced that I can think of. I've already done the wheel bearings. I've already done the ball joints. The steering's new. The pinion was tightened not too long ago. So the only thing that comes to mind is the carrier bearings. And that's kind of what it sounds like, is that the carrier is probably a little loose, because I wasn't the best at setting up gears. So what we're going to do is try to reshim the carrier. We're gonna shim outboard with the little thin paper shims, and an axle stretcher. I got one of those gear install thingers from eBay. It worked pretty well on the Dana 44. So we're going to completely strip this axle to get the carrier out, and we're going to try to reshim it so that we have less backlash and more preload. So you ready to take this bastard apart? Put it up on jack stands. Got to pull the tires, got to pull the wheel bearings, got to pull the shafts, got to pull the cover. For me, I have to take that stupid electrical connector out, and then should be able to pull the carrier. Jacked up, tires off, and calipers and brakes off. So for the caliper, we've got two Allen heads over here. They are 7mm on mine anyway, I think, right? What are we looking at? 7 mil. Use a flathead to pry the caliper off. Use a flathead to pop these springs up over, these little tabbies. You can take the pads off, and then the rotor should come right off. Alright, so now onto the fun stuff. We can do this one of two ways. We can leave the axle shaft in place and take the hub and shaft out together, or we can separate them. It really depends on what you think you can pull off. I mean, if you can just pull the whole hub off with the shaft, then go for it. It's going to be a little harder to put it all back together, but, you know. To take the hub off, we got three 12-point bolts. So we got one up there, we got one over here, and we got one on the other side there. Make sure you're not taking off the Make sure you're not taking off this caliper bolt thing over here. These upper ones, don't worry about them. You want the inner bolts. Alright, let's see what we can break free here. I want to tell you right now that that was a really painless job, because I've been in here a lot of times, and I use that magical anti-seize stuff, man. All these bolts broke free just fine. A lot of them came out, you know, just by hand once you loosened them up. And check it. Even the hub over here, I can't remember when I took it out, but maybe a year. Completely loose. Look at that. Whole thing wiggles right out. If you've never touched your axle before, good luck trying to do that. They're stuck in bad. Real bad. You're going to need a chisel to try to break that free from the hub over there and beat the hell out of it with a sledge and all kinds of shit like that. Real pain in the butt. Anyway, try to support this when you're taking it out, so you go easy on the seal inside.
Did you say seal?
And there you go. That right there. There's your axle shaft and your unit bearing all together. Beautiful. Okay. And do that on the other side. This one comes up from the bottom first. I knew that. Yeah, them little tabs will get you. Time. This one's missing the spring clips, so they come right off. Okay, the long dong is out. So now we can move on to the fun, that is the diff. So we're gonna see if this over the knuckle kit
is going to get in the way of the carrier. It kind of looks like it is. Gross. Also, some of these bolts are a little chewed up, so it's going to be fun trying to take them out. But yeah, now we get the diff cover off, and we can get to the goodies inside. Make sure you got a catch pan for all that wonderful fluid. See what kind of condition it's in. A little impact and socket makes quick work of this stuff, though. Zip them right off. We are in. So, I'm gonna have to undo the locker wire over there. Pain in the ass getting that plug off. But yeah, we're inside. So trick for this: leave the bolt on at the top so you can crack the cover, let it all fall down without everything splashing. Then you can take the cover off. So it covers off, bolts are off, all that. Gasket came off perfectly, so that should be easily reusable. Gaskets make for really easy cleanup, so I super recommend them. So now all we gotta do once we take the wire out is to get the carrier free. So we're going to have to take off these 4 carrier cap bolts. They are marked, so you can see upside down A, upside down A. Hopefully that's in focus and bright enough. I can never tell on the camera until I'm looking at the editing and go, wow, that's so overexposed. Sideways A, sideways A. So that tells the, you know, the up and down and the left to right. Okay, I guess I'll put some gloves on and see how much that shakes around too, just to see what we're dealing with. So I doubt I can hold you steady enough for this, but it does move a little bit. Just the tiniest little bit. A wiggle. And if I recall correctly, there should be no wiggle. You should have backlash forward and backwards, but left and right, no me gusta. Okay, so that's good to know. So we're going to take our carrier caps out, and with how loose this is, it's probably just going to fall right out. Wonderful. Okay, so there you go, carrier out. This little guy with the swivel socket. Oh my god, I love this Milwaukee, dude. It takes apart everything. This is great. I don't have to do anything by hand. Lazy's good. Okay, so now we're in. So once you take those caps off, if the carrier doesn't damn near fall out on you, you'll have to use some kind of prying device, like a hammer or a pry bar or some method of trying to wiggle the damn thing out. So as you can see, we got one shim that was kind of in there. That's what I tried to put in last time when I first re-geared this, and obviously it didn't do a very good job. So, now that she's open and clean, I guess we'll spray it with a little brake clean, and we'll get that axle spreader on there. And what happens is this housing spreader goes into these 2 giant pins, and it actually opens the case. So you can only safely open these, I think, like 10 thou, maybe. I'm pretty sure 15's pushing it, but yeah, you open it about 10 thou, and that'll give you that extra room to get the thin shims in there easily, and then you can tighten it back down and it'll actually lock in a little tighter, because it's hard to directly measure what your carrier preload even is. But I guess I should go over this. So obviously you have your carrier right here, and the preload is how tight the bearings are getting squeezed together. Okay, so the rolling resistance that it takes to actually turn it, the more shims you have here, the tighter the bearings, the harder it is to spin. The bearings have to be preloaded to a certain extent to do their job fully, because you know they need to be tight so that under load they don't flex, because if they get loose and bounce around, that's how they blow up. So you got to keep them tight. So that's what we're doing here. If you wanted to do like gears to check your pattern and stuff like that, if you put shims on one side or just shims on the other side, that's called backlash. That changes how far the gear clicks one way and the other when you hold the pinion. So the backlash has to be within a certain spec, and you know the preload is just however tight you can get it. So as tight as you can, you know, physically jam the thing in there, you're good. So I'm gonna go get the spreader, we're gonna hook it up, and we're gonna open this housing up and see if we can find ourselves some shims. So this would be called outboard shimming, because we're shimming outboard of the bearing. You can also shim inboard, but that would require taking the bearing off, and if you don't have a proper puller, the bearing's toast. So it's good to make setup bearings. You buy just the inner bearing or whatever. Is that the race? Not the cup? Whatever. The inside part, you buy an extra one of those, you grind the inside so they slip on and off easy. They're called setup bearings. So that way you can get your preload without, you know, fucking a bearing on and off a billion times. But anyway, yeah. If you don't have a shim kit, you're going to need a shim kit. I still got plenty of stuff laying around because I never throw anything away. Enough yamming. Let's jammer. Okay, so here is the damaged on here. And this is some of the stuff I got laying around. I'm pretty sure this is for the 44. And this was all the leftover stuff I had for the 30-35. I think they were the same. But yeah, we've got a couple different sizes here. It looks like we want the big stuff. Yeah, it looks like a fit. Oh, stop. Well, we've got a few here, but not much. Let's keep digging. Alright, so we still got some from the old kit. This is the used and abused pile. But there's some in here that are still decently flat, so we should be able to get away with them. It's a hell of a lot better than what it was. So you take yourself a micrometer, and you go to town. So you just measure the thickness of all of them. For the shim packs that I get, the most common size is like anywhere from like a 10 to a 12, and you get a 6, and then you get like a 3 to 4. So we got those from the reject pile that we can use if we have to. And we still got a few new ones. So we got, looks like 6 and 2 4s. So we're going to want to go with the biggest ones first. So good thing we got 2 11s. I'm going to open it up and see if we can just jam these in first. And if we can go farther, well, then we go farther. So for those of you that don't know, this is what an axle spreader looks like, or a case spreader. So it's basically just got a giant nut at the bottom that you use to open and close it. And it's got these 2 pins that stick out. And they just slide into these holes. And what you do is you line it up and you open the case. You're not going to be able to tell with your eyes. You're only going to open it like 10 thou, because otherwise you risk damaging things. But a bit of an oversight here. The axle is jammed so far up into this business that it contacts on the track bar mount. So, yeah. I guess what I'm going to have to do is support the frame and drop the axle down some so I can get the damn thing on there. Poop. Okay, so now we have the axle dropped down a little bit, and we got the frame supported back there. Okay, so this is what it looks like when it's actually put on. I had to bring it into the smaller hole for the 30 and also move it over so it didn't hit the spring. But yeah, it's tight. It's, you know, a little tight. Don't trust these things until they're like really tight though. These are freaking heavy and you don't want that thing falling on you. I think it hurt like a son of a bitch. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna set up our dial indicator. Forget if I showed this off yet. One of these little guys. And we're gonna put it somehow against the housing like this so that we can see how big it's getting. So what we're gonna do is I guess we'll set like a start point and then we'll open it up 10 thou and set it the end point so that way we don't have to check the dial continuously as we're taking this thing in and out, because it's not going to be a one-time job. But yeah, we're going to open it up and see how many shims we can cram in there. Alright, there you go. Set at 0, so now we'll expand it. Okay, so we got our King Kong Ding Dong over here. For mine, I'm lifting it up to open it. You see we're at 90 now, so we're opened up 10 thou. So that kind of matches that other mark I had on there. Cool. Alright, so we'll make a mark there so we know where 10 thou is. We can take this out, and now the fun part of putting the carrier in and out a bunch of times until we get our shims right. Oh boy. Okay, so now we slide the carrier back in, and I don't know if you can see that or not, but I have a 10 thou shim on that side. And the hell am I looking at here? Right there, another 10 thou. So that is 20 thou that we have in there, and it slipped in pretty easy. So with this, you just want to see, you want to fit as many as you can, honestly. The tighter you can get it, the better, because that'll mean that the bearings will last longer. So I guess there's 2 sixes over there. Can we fit 16 on each side? We're gonna find out. Alright, so I took her out and actually slipped in 6 thou on each side as well. So we've got 16 thou on each side. Holy crap. That's 32 thou that we were able to squeeze. So that, if you consider that, you know, we spread this 10 thou, we were at least 20 thou short. So, there might be room for some 4s. I don't know, it'd be a little tricky. But a few things. When you're moving this carrier in and out, I know it's tempting, but don't ever stick your fingers inside the middle of the bearing, because if the whole assembly decides it just wants to roll in, it pinches your finger, it hurts like a son of a bitch. So yeah, don't do that. And for the shims, just be real careful. What I found is hold it with your fingers and kind of rock it back and forth to try to get the shims to line up. Now with this, the Dana 30 over here, it's got these little pockets that the shims get caught on. Real pain in the butt to make sure that you don't pinch them. So get yourself itty bitty little screwdriver, and you just go in there and just pop it while you're trying to push it in there. And if you're lucky, you can get the shims to slide past. At the very end, if you notice the shims are sticking out like, we're talking like a millimeter or two, you can take a hammer and really lightly tap on it to get it to push in the rest of the way. But if you notice it's out a lot, don't try to hit it, because it's just going to get cockeyed and bent and all kinds of crap. You got to be real careful with these shims. Okay, so now that we've got more shims in here, what we're going to do is check our backlash. So we're going to put the bearing caps back on over here. We're going to take all the pressure off the axle. Then we're going to set up our do-dinger and see what the backlash is at. So if the backlash is good, then we're fine. But if it needs to be adjusted, then what we do is we can move shims from one side to the other side to get our backlash back in check. So I guess we'll do that. Okay, so here's part 2 of making sure that everything is where it should be. So now we just have the magnetic base there, and we got this as parallel to the tooth as we can possibly get. Or maybe it's perpendicular. Regardless. So here is our gauge now. So what you do is you hold the pinion with one hand so it doesn't move, and then you take the ring gear and you rock it back and forth to see what your play is. So I rocked it and centered it at 0. So that is our play right now. We're at 11th out of backlash. So that is a little high. We want to be around 6 to 10. And I know it doesn't seem like much, but if you can get it closer to the recommended, the better. So the sweet spot's around 8. So let's see. If we have too much backlash, then what we need to do is push the ring gear closer to the pinion. So what we'll do is we'll take shims out of the non-ring gear side and move them to the ring gear side. That'll push the ring gear closer and we'll get less backlash. So we've got a 16 on either side because we only got 4 and 6 and 10. So what you could do is take the 6 out on this side and put in a 4. So then we're 2 short over here, so we could take the 6 out on here and do 2 4s, so we'd have 8. But maybe I want to see if I can fit a 4 and a 6 on that side. Hopefully that's not too much, that won't push it too far, but I think I can get it a little tighter. So that's what we'll do. We'll take the 6 out on here, we'll put a 4 in, and we'll just put a 4 in there. So we're tightening the preload and moving the backlash at the same time, which is not super recommended. You're changing 2 variables at once, so you might get a little different than what you expect, but I think we'll be fine. So we'll set it all up and take it apart again. So I guess I could show you what this looks like anyway. This might be a little off since I'm not perfectly holding the pinion, but that's what you're doing. That little movement is enough to move the dial that much. So that's what you're looking for. Alright, time for some professional footage, huh? Yeah, I own a tripod. Alright, so we took the 6 off and added a 4. And then on the other side we added a 4 into the stack. So preload is getting increased by 2, and backlash is getting, I guess, decreased by 2 as well. So we're getting tighter and moving closer. So now the fun part. Also, I forgot to mention, you don't want to mix up your bearing caps, so make sure if they fall off they go in the same direction because they kind of wear into each other. The shims like to stick together a little bit when they're greasy, which you could use to your benefit. So you get a little wheel bearing grease, or even just gear oil. Might help them stay together. Might make it a little easier to juggle. Alright. So, now the fun part. You pick it up and you stick it in there. Alright. Okay. So, I'm holding onto the shim stacks as well, but you probably can't see that. Okay. And now the fun game of, is it in straight, is it in cockeyed, and are all the shims going in? Okay. Oh yeah, she's feeling a little tighter now, that's nice. It helps to try to keep the shims on the bearing cups, because then they're less likely to bend. I always like to put the thinnest shims on the inside against the bearing. That way the thicker one, since it's a little more rigid, might have a better chance of actually sliding against the housing and going in. You always want to try to keep pressure on the shims so that everything rolls in together. Okay, so now we're up onto those ridges. Take our little flathead and just push it a little bit. Okay. Those are in there. Get the other side. Okay. And gently just... Alright, so now the shims are sticking out a bit more than we want. They're most of the way there. So, now, you gotta do this really gently. If you hit them too hard, they're gonna fold over. So, now then, she's back in there, so we're going to put our bearing caps back on, tighten them up, take it apart, and see how Backlash is. So again, always make sure the caps go on the right direction. On the right side, all that crap. Make sure the seating surfaces are clean. We don't want a bunch of crap on there. And we're just going to run her down with an ooga dooga or two. Nothing crazy. We'll torque it up to spec when we know we're good. Okay, now she's tightened up. Now we get to take it all off and check it again. At least this time now we get to go down. Oh, yeah. Oh, she's a little tight. But with 18 inches, you can get anything done. Woo, okay, and she's loose. Alright, make sure your legs are out of the kill zone, because that fucker will hurt. Alright. Ugh. Woo. Safety, pumpkin, safety. I'll set this guy back up. Make sure she's sitting on there pretty square, nice and firm. You always want to make sure that your dial indicator has some tension on it. You don't want to start it at 0, you always want it to be under some tension. Give her a little tap or two, make sure she's where she should be. Okay, so we moved it over 2 thou, and now we're down to 8. We are right in the money. Look at that. That is good backlash. Beautiful. Not too tight, not too loose. Right where we want her. Alright, I'm happy with this. This is a used gear set, so that's fine for me. Gorgeous. Well, she's done. So now that we tightened up our preload and we fixed our backlash, we're golden. We're gonna get a torque wrench, torque all these carrier cap bolts down. Then we can put the cover back on and fill it up. She's good to go. Beautiful. Get this done in a day if you're fast enough. Okay, correction. The bearing cap bolts get 60 foot-pounds, not 80. Double check the torque spec just to make sure. So I was hitting 75 and it was just kind of chilling. So yeah, 60 foot-pounds. Oopsies. So now we can start putting everything together. Got the cover back on so we can slide our shafts back in. So help out the next guy, which is probably going to be you. Put a little anti-seize on there, man. She don't bite. Alright, slide it in there, try to support the shaft, and all you gotta do is index it with the carrier. So just try to lift it up, make sure you're not messing up the seal too hard. This one's a little off balance, so I'm gonna have to do this two-handed, but you know, yeah. Make sure to clean off the tip. Take a look at your sealing surface while you're here. See how she's looking. One's looking a little chewy. If it's real bad though, you can use some sandpaper to try to clean it up. So as usual, the phone dies before the job's done. What else is new? Okay, so everything is put back together, cover's back on. We filled her up with some 80W90 gear oil and took her out for a spin. Everything kind of seems about the same. I don't really notice much of a difference. And the mystery noise that I was trying to get rid of is still there. So it was not the carrier bearings. Wah, wah, wah. So it's got to be some kind of bearing somewhere. I'm thinking it's probably the transfer case, the front pinion, or whatever, output shaft thing. That was the only bearing I couldn't replace because it's in a blind hole, and I wasn't sure how to get it out of there. So when I get around to it, I think we're going to pull the transfer case and rebuild it and beef that up as well. But anyway, back to this topic. That's how you, adjust carrier bearings and set them up properly. So now the darn thing should last for quite a long time. Woo friggin' who. See, gears aren't too hard once you know your way around them anyway.